Welcome to Paradelphia Radio. This is Rick Pruitt once again here in the Toxic Studios. And I am here.
Wait, I'm not here. Oh, there I am. Okay.
I am here with Mr. Dougie Doug.
Hey now. All right, once again, part 2. Here we go.
On mic number 3. Mic number 3. I can't
Something
speak.
like that.
We have an old friend to join us again, Miss Catrena Clair.
Hello.
Hi, Catrena.
Part of the jump team, and it's so funny because I saw her a couple of days ago at a Wawa down where we live, and I didn't realize it was her until after I got, because of the masks, you know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like sitting there thinking, damn, was that Catrena? And then I sent her a text message so she didn't think I was an asshole or something, you know what I mean? But it was just crazy because of these masks. It could be a good thing or a bad thing, you know? But yeah, like, I was like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, so.
And I believe joining us, if not now, soon, we have Miss Jenna B. Keene. She is in her, there she is.
I was going to say, I'm here.
In her home. In her home down in Salem County.
Featuring Steven.
Oh, yeah, there's Steven in the background.
Listen,
What's up, Steven?
if the weather was a little better and I wasn't so freaking pregnant, I'd be in the studio.
Yeah,
I get so tired this time of night. Like, I'm just the thought of going there. Not that I didn't want to see the studio, because I literally miss the studio so much, and I miss Mike this
that
much.
Yeah,
just this much.
Mike
And,
the lube guy. He's still my lube guy, anyway.
Yeah, but I was like, but maybe next week or the next week you guys are in studio, I'll be there.
If you think you're not getting a lot of sleep now, wait till the baby's born.
Listen, I'm literally at a doctor's appointment today, and my doctor has told me several times, like, your body's probably just getting like used to. Well, it's funny because I'm tired, but I really don't sleep throughout the night because I literally get up to pee 800 times, and I'm just like, I'm tired, but I can't sleep.
It's like the body's given a practice, like, on its own. You know what I mean? It's like. Plus, it doesn't help that it's been like literally raining freaking a week every day for a week straight. It's like it rains all morning, sun comes out, except we have a hurricane right now or whatever. But it doesn't help that it's rained every damn day for the last week.
Well, it's been raining all week. But the one day that's important this week, it's not going to be raining. That's Saturday.
Exactly.
Because Saturday finally is the day we've all been waiting for about 2 months now, 3 months now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Halloween. 11 months.
Yep. If
right.
In some areas it hasn't been canceled, because there are a few areas I've read that it's been canceled, unfortunately. So, but maybe we can video trick or treat. Is that possible?
So that's gonna be our topic for the evening. We're gonna talk all about Halloween. I figured I would kind of just make this sort of a round robin type of show. I have a little bit here about the history of Halloween. I got out of a book that I was reading earlier this month. But we'll get into that in a couple of minutes here. But for the most part, I wanted to just kind of, throw it around to the crew here and see what you guys remember, traditions you guys had for Halloween when you were kids, how that's changed. Coming into the 21st century. If I know there's some things that have changed a lot since when I was a kid. Oh yeah.
I mean, one thing that I will say is I remember. Us growing up, one of the main, we always used to trick or treat. When I say we, meaning Jenna, also is we always used to go to our Aunt Lori and Uncle Parker's house in Alloway, because they lived in one of the houses that were like in the woods, and it was like a little neighborhood kind of thing, and down in Salem County. And I mean, you had a bunch of houses there, and that's where we go. And I remember, I think back then there was no curfew. I remember we would go and start maybe just as the sun was going down, and I can remember we'd be out till probably freaking 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock at night, and people were still going hard. I mean, and now you sit there and you look in a lot of these towns, you see kids trick-or-treating, and it's trick-or-treating curfew is 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., and it's it's crazy. When I can remember, we would go probably hit up same houses 3 or 4 times.
Right.
So
starting out tonight, let's get into a little bit of the history of the holiday. Because I talk about this a little bit every year, because I find it really interesting. Where some of these holidays come from. We do this with Christmas too.
Right.
But in the case of Halloween, basically it's kind of a demarcation point in the year between the growing season of summertime and the coming winter.
Right.
And
it's
this
huge transition kind of thing.
Right.
Know, right?
And this started out as basically, the balance of life and death. Because, back in the day, you didn't have supermarkets you could go to and get food. So if you had a bad harvest, or if you didn't have a good crop come in, or you just ran out of food for whatever reason,
you're just going to eat bugs
you
or starve.
You were screwed for the wintertime. So basically, the difference between life and death was whether you had this great harvest come in, and so it was kind of a celebration of the life-giving summertime and the coming, deadly winter, potentially deadly winter.
Right.
So the tradition kind of all these traditions kind of go back to the original, the Celtic tradition.
Right.
Which was, literally 1,000+ years ago, over in Ireland and Scotland and those places, and
go Scotland.
They had their holiday at the time. It was called Samhain.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
And Samhain was basically, again, it was a demarcation point in their year between the growing season and the coming winter, and because it was such an issue between life and death, that was a big. It was basically an anxiety point for them.
Sure.
So it kind of naturally lended itself to having this time of year be the time of year when the veil between life and death was a little bit thinner.
Right.
Because you as a living person were kind of on that edge to begin with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So the physical portal between the worlds were kind of in flux. And then eventually, over the course of years, it got to a point where, again, with most holidays, when the Roman Empire came and they conquered the Celtic regions, they were, at the time, they were the Holy Roman Empire. They had adopted Christianity.
Right.
So at that point, they did what they had always seemed to do, and instead of just flat out saying to these tribes of Celtic people that, you've got to start celebrating our holiday, they kind of piggybacked onto the current holiday that the Celts were celebrating.
Right, I got you. Yeah.
As far as the date in the year goes, and
right.
for
it's kind of like they made it their own. It's like, okay, we got this.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So for Halloween, instead of the Samhain holiday, they kind of convinced the Celts to start celebrating something called All Saints Day, which was in early November, and it kind of sort of over the course of years morphed itself into what eventually became Halloween, but it became kind of a 3 or 4 day holiday at the end of October into early November.
Right.
Which was the Romans' holiday. It was not the Celtic holiday, but again, they kind of overlapped it.
Right. Yeah. They kind of, like you said, they were like, oh, okay, you got your thing. Well, we like that idea.
Right.
Let's do something like it, but let's add our own twist.
Yeah. And they called it a lot of things. It was called Hollow Mass to begin with, All Hallows Eve at one point. And basically, at the beginning of the reign of Charles I, it was considered the beginning of the Christmas season.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I remember. Yep.
So, this was, again, leaning heavily into the Christian tradition of Christmas. They tried to, and ironically, they're doing that again now because you can't go into a freaking store now without seeing Christmas decorations up.
Right. Yeah. Like I was
as of 2 weeks ago.
I was going to say, I was in Walmart, not in Penn. I don't know what Penn's, but I was in Walmart, yeah, like not that long ago, a couple days ago, and I seen they got like a whole section already.
Right.
Like.
So when Charles I brought this together in kind of one big holiday over the course of late October, early November, they marked this holiday. They traditionally marked this holiday with what they called masks or masquerade balls. So this is kind of the first inkling of what would eventually become Halloween with the costumes and masks. It started out with these masquerade balls that were put together by Charles I and other dignitaries in ancient England.
Right. Yep.
Or not ancient England, but
you're right.
The middle, what do they call it? The Middle Ages.
Middle, yeah.
Yeah. So that became commonplace at that point, and that kind of got the mask and like I said, the costumes involved. But as you go forward in time, it kind of became more of a by the time you get into like the 1700s, it became kind of more of a ritual of almost soothsaying or prophecy.
Okay, yeah.
And again, up to this point, it has had very little to do with the dead.
Right, it just became more of a. You're right. Like how it originally started, it was mainly to, again, for the dead. At this point, it just became like a celebratory kind of thing. Like,
Right.
Let's dress up and party kind of thing.
Right. It's kind of the coming of the winter season.
Right. Yeah, celebrate. Yeah, exactly.
So in kind of the colonial times, what would happen is it kind of morphed from this masquerade ball-ish party into a more subdued, kind of a lower key party or celebration that families would have together, and neighborhoods would have together, and towns would have together, villages.
Right.
And what would happen, ironically, is it would become something akin to a almost not a Ouija board session. There wasn't a Ouija board involved, but it was sort of the same thing where young ladies at the time would try to intuit who their husband was going to be.
Yeah. Oh.
Among other things.
Gotcha.
and the way they would do this was kind of interesting. They would use nuts, like hazelnuts and chestnuts.
Let's clarify that. Yes. Thank you for clearing that up.
Right. So,
I mean, I'm just saying, you're talking about women and trying to figure out who their husbands are going to be, and you're saying, chose nuts. I just, thank you for clearing that up.
So what they would do is there was invariably a fireplace
Right.
in the home that they were celebrating in, and they would grab 2 or 3 of these chestnuts or hazelnuts and throw them in the fire. But before they would do that, they would label them as, let's say, one of the girls had a crush on 2 boys.
Okay.
Charles and Robert.
Right.
And she would say the hazelnut on the left is Charles and the one on the right is Robert. She would throw them into the fire. And depending on how they burned in the fire would kind of tell the future of each of their relationships.
Oh, wow.
So if the one or the other fizzled and popped, that was a very violent relationship. A very what's the word I'm looking for here? Not stable.
Unhealthy.
It's not a stable relationship.
Right. Okay. So the pop noise was bad.
Yeah,
right.
just like a really quick relationship. I have heard this before.
Wow.
So it's just more of like a quick relationship, and then the slower it burned, it just meant it was like a more stable relationship and it would last longer. I had heard that before.
So then the girl would ironically base her choice of mate or beau on this game of throwing these chestnuts or hazelnuts into a fire.
On how quick your nuts will burn.
Yeah, and they did it with variations. They did it
Sure.
with they did it with kale at one point. Something about, I think it was you hang the kale over the door, and whichever one hits the guy on the head first or something, he got.
Oh, wow.
He was the one you were supposed to marry. It was like
Gotcha.
all these games
Where did you say this was? In England?
in Scotland, England. Yeah, basically the United Kingdom.
So this is funny because I've been to Salem, Massachusetts 5 times, so I know a thing or two about the Salem witch trials. And one of the things that Tituba, who was one of the very first accused witches, she was from Barbados, and she was a slave, and she lived in Salem, Massachusetts. Well, she used to do this game, or it wasn't a game, it was more of like a prediction thing with some of the girls that claimed to be possessed by the devil, where she would take a pot of water or a pot of something, and they would put items in, and whatever the shape of the item, so let's say it was salt or pepper, they would put it in the boiling pot, and whatever the letter of the shape of the letter that showed up in the pot was the first name of their husband.
Yeah.
So it's funny that they all
So if you got a T, it'd be a lot of different names. But
yeah. But it's funny that it's just, and it was only the girls that could see it.
Well, if you think about it, that made sense, because at the time, again, this was a whole different world where women basically were at the the beck and call of men, and their big contribution to the town and the village was to marry and reproduce.
Right.
So you wanted to have a solid marriage and a good, reproductive marriage, so to speak, and have a lot of kids to further the village.
Sure.
So that was their contribution. So this idea of marrying well was everything to these girls. That's why it was so important for them to find out ahead of time, like who they were going to marry.
Because again, like you said, I mean, back in those days, it was a lot different than nowadays. There was, however the man was that the woman was with, whatever the village or whatever thought of that is how it was portrayed as her too. Like, it did not matter whatsoever. Because again, like you said, different time where it was like man was up here and they were just, again, the personal servant, holy matrimony kind of thing.
So over the years, Halloween eventually came to America. And when it came to America, it became more of, and it's ironic because tomorrow night is Mischief Night.
Right.
And I know that it goes by a bunch of different names all over the country. Some places call it Devil's Night. Some places call it, I forget what the other one is.
Yeah.
There's another name for it.
Because one of them actually extends to tonight.
Yeah.
There's like 2 days prior to.
Yeah, we always called it Mischief Night when you go out and you kind of just, you TP houses and you throw eggs and, you generally screw around.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was, if you go back to the early 20th century, in like the 1920s, that the pranking aspect of Halloween became very, very prevalent for kids.
Mm-hmm.
There was no such thing as trick-or-treating at this point. The trick that hadn't even started yet.
Right.
So Halloween was either a small gathering of adults just kind of having a little party, and for kids it was basically pranking.
Right.
So they would go around and they was no joke. Like, they would literally do stuff to actually physically harm livestock. They would go around and they would burn down a barn.
Yeah, there's no innocence towards
this was no
it at
egging.
all.
Yeah, this was no egging of the houses.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually the adults got wise to this because they couldn't stop it. They tried to stop it and it was too prevalent among the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a little smarter than that. And so what would happen is some of the adults in town would start holding parties for the kids. And make it well known, kind of like word of mouth. You know, you didn't have the internet at the time, so you just kind of spread word of mouth that Mrs. So-and-so was going to have a party.
Right.
And so what would happen is these kids would flock to this party where they had candy and they had fruits and vegetables and they had food.
It was like a good distraction for them.
Right. It's exactly what it was.
Right.
They couldn't stop the kids from doing these pranks, but what they could do is get them to come to a party, and that way they could keep their eye on them, so that in essence kept them from doing the pranks.
And it's funny that you said it. If I can remember clearly, I think a couple of times growing up, because with the school dances, like a lot of the dances that we had down in Salem County where I'm from, is we have a firehouse, Lower Alloys Creek Firehouse, LAC, and they always used to have dances. There's LAC dances when you were like in elementary school into 8th grade,
right?
And if I can remember clearly, a couple of times growing up around that age, if Halloween fell maybe twice, I think, on a weekend, and I think it was kind of the same concept. On a Mischief Night, they decided, we'll have a dance,
right?
Because here it is, you don't have school, so maybe to keep a distraction,
right,
kind of thing, So if I can remember, I think it was twice that it did that. It fell on a day where they did that.
So the kids, this went on for a few years, and the kids kind of got used to this, and it became a thing that kind of spread out across the country, where towns kind of got wise and said, okay, let's start having these parties, and they would have them at individual houses.
Right.
They would have them at town halls and granges and whatnot.
They saw it was a success, it brought it down. All right.
So as a result of this, the kids, it was kind of like a war back and forth, a psychological war back and forth, because at this point the kids started getting wise to the fact that there were these parties.
Mm-hmm.
So the kids started to expect parties to just be all over town.
Right.
So what would happen is the kids would knock on someone's door looking for a party.
Hey, having a party?
They would look for treats.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, give me a party.
Or I'm going to mess you up.
Or,
right.
or give me a treat, or I'm going to play a trick on you.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the beginning of trick or treat.
Mm-hmm.
That was literally a ultimatum. Trick or treat was an ultimatum by the kids given to the adults. Give me a treat, or I will play a trick on you, and the trick might be to burn your barn down.
Well, it's crazy because like I knew the concept of trick or treat surrounded on, it was give me a treat or I'll mischief your house. I didn't realize though it was surrounded about like what you just said, surrounded around the fact that it started out as messing everything up in parties. So it's very interesting. That's cool to know.
And then so this kind of went mainstream in the mid 50s, of all things, over a Donald Duck cartoon. So there was a Donald Duck cartoon that was played in the mid 50s, where Huey, Dewey, and Louie, his nephews, went out in costume, knocking on doors, trick or treating. And this was spread out across. It was Looney Tunes and not Looney Tunes, Disney.
Disney
was obviously very well known at this point. And so all the kids kind of picked up on this idea of, hey, Huey, Dewey, and Louie did this cool thing. So this became ingrained basically at that point in the American pop culture.
It's like it's what started as a trend from, again, pop culture turned into what is the tradition.
So by the late 50s, it started to become very common for kids to go out and do trick or treating. Now the interesting thing with that, and I was talking to Taryn about this the other day, my wife Taryn, I said, when you're kids, you don't know what you don't know. So I grew up and we went trick or treating. When I was a kid in the 70s. When I was a real small kid, I did it myself in the 80s. But if you think about that, just think about that for a second. If that didn't start as a thing until the late 50s, our parents were the first ones to really go trick or treating. So my generation that grew up in the 70s and 80s were really only the second generation of kids that ever did trick or treating.
Which, like you said, you kind of just always have that where it's just, oh, okay, the 31st is here, we go trick or treat. You don't realize that, you kind of just assume it's always been a thing.
Right.
And it
it wasn't. It had only been around. When I started, doing it back in the mid to late 70s, it had only been around for less than 20 years.
But again, you're a kid, you don't realize. You don't realize it's just been how it's since the beginning of time.
And it's so ingrained in pop culture now.
Cavemen were trick-or-treating.
Right. It just seems like everyone did it forever. Like it's just a thing everybody always ever did.
Right.
It's not the case. It's only been around for, at this point it's been around for, 60 or so years. But again, when I was a kid, it's wild to think that it had only been around for less than 20 years.
And it's crazy too when we talk about especially things like this, because you do also hear different theories and you hear people in their mind, like I've heard, the main thing I've always heard, trick-or-treating was created by the candy companies to advertise, which that's not the case at all, Well,
they benefited.
They did, no doubt about it.
No doubt.
Because they saw this, this has become a tradition, so they go, oh, okay, well, let's benefit from it, no doubt about it, but they weren't the reason.
Yeah.
Because trick-or-treating started. But, they maybe were the reason why it kind of enhanced and blew up like it did.
Right.
And said, let's just give candy, but, so.
So that's kind of the history of where Halloween came from. It's a quick
but it's real
bullet
cool.
point history, but
it's neat to know. Because, again, like you said, you kind of just always have this thought with anything. It's just how it's been, and then to think about that, again, to know that it hasn't even been 100 years.
Right.
Like 100 years ago, people weren't trick or treating. So
So let's kind of go around here. Let's I've been jabbering on for 20 minutes here. So why don't we go? Let's try Catrena, our guest here. How about Halloween for you? What was Halloween for you like as a kid?
I don't really remember, in all honesty, but it was just
Thanks,
like,
Catrena. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't remember. And in other words, she was sheltered as a child.
No, I went trick or treating, but like that. Where I live, where I grew up as a child, because the house I live in now, we moved in there in 2001, so like I was still kind of a kid, but like on my old street, everybody knew everybody, so it's just like. One of our neighbors would always, in the summer, hold like block parties for like all the kids. You just mark off like his side street at either end, and then so it's just like everybody knew everybody. So it's
right when you have them neighborhood type situations, you kind of get that right.
And then when we moved in this house, luckily it was closer to both my grandmothers, so obviously me and my sister would go hit up their houses. Yeah, and we got all the good stuff.
Hit that up before they get it all before everybody else shows up.
I feel like it's probably not too much different from today because I'm only 26.
Did you get the people to still give out the pennies? The little wrapped pennies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember that shit?
I do remember.
I don't think so.
The old woman down the street used to give out like the 5 wrapped pennies. I'm like, are you kidding me with this?
No, we didn't. I didn't get those.
I was just saying, I do remember getting like pennies or some weird like an orange like a couple of times. You know what I mean? But not much. But like, and again, I think that kind of fell a lot as it started early on because but my main thing is the fruit. When you see people like giving oranges and apples and everything,
here's a tangerine.
Like, yeah, exactly.
I never got any of that either.
All right,
so.
here's laundry detergent.
Yeah. So Jen, you're another youngin. What do you think? How has Halloween changed? Do you think?
I'm a weirdo, and I think that Halloween night is still as magical as it was when I was 7 and trick-or-treating. Like, there's just something...
Which was like 2005.
No! 98, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
What were you like? What were you applying
in 98? I was 27.
98.
I was 27 years old.
So
I was almost married.
It's funny. It's funny because I remember me and Kelly Roncase having conversations about this all the time, that there's just something about Halloween night where you feel the veil thin, like the veil between the other side and Earth. You feel the veil, like you feel the veil thinning. And maybe that's just me, but I've always felt like I was a weirdo with Halloween, and just something about Halloween, like it doesn't matter how old I am. I don't trick or treat anymore, but I go with my nieces and nephews. And this time
I was going to say, by next year, you're going to be the beginning of every year. Yeah, you definitely will.
I know. Yeah, this time next year, I'll have, I don't care. I guess will be 9 months. No, will be 10 months, I guess. And so, I mean, I'm taking him trick or treating.
So the cutoff, the unofficial cutoff I've always heard for trick or treating is 12 years old. You guys, have you heard this?
I mean, I've never really heard a cutoff because, I mean, I still see when I take, like, my kids trick-or-treating, like, I see kids of all ages, you know what I mean?
I do too.
Like,
but that's I've heard that's like a thing, quote-unquote unofficial, when you're 12, that's your last year for trick-or-treating.
Right, I mean,
and it was probably accurate for me. I think I went out at like 13 maybe.
Right. I think there was a gap where... I think there was like this generation where it was just like, oh, if you hit a certain age, it was uncool to go trick or treat. But like nowadays, it's just like you realize, oh man, getting free candy and getting dressed up, like it's just more of an open kind of generation now, and that you do see now people of all ages. So
I used to have a buddy who, up until he was literally 35, would literally his name was Gaetano, and Gaetano would come up to me. I remember the last time he asked me to go trick-or-treating, it had to been like lower 30s, like
was it more like at that point, was it more like beer trick or something, like trick?
No, he came up dressed as Sting from wrestling, and
nice.
Sting,
and he was like, do you want to go trick-or-treating? And I was like, are you kidding me? It's weird.
It's like, I'll be me, but yeah, no, it's, I don't know, like I said, I feel like, again, there's more a generation where it was like at some point it was like, oh, it's too cool. I mean, now granted, since I've had kids, every year I dress up. But see, my concept of dressing up, like last year at Walmart, I also dressed up. Like my daughter, she wanted to be a unicorn, so I found like this onesie unicorn, and she wanted me to be a unicorn too. So I found an adult onesie unicorn. So I dressed up as a onesie unicorn.
Are there pictures of this, Doug?
Oh yeah, like and again, I think it's a different thing. Like when you have kids, it's kind of like it'd be a different story if I'm 16 years old.
I think we need to see a picture of you as a unicorn.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Because then the year before that, I was cat dog. I had a cat dog onesie. Like
I used to love cat dog.
Oh yeah, like I found it at Walmart. It was a onesie thing. In fact, I've worn it a couple times, like at night.
Just like on a Thursday.
Yeah. I might wear it into the show next week.
Like a random Thursday in March, Doug dresses like cat dog.
Dress up like cat dog, But yeah, no, it's again, like where you have kids. Once you have kids, I just feel like it's almost like, oh, I have an excuse. If you do kind of feel that so-called shame or embarrassment, like because you don't want to go out dressed up because you think you're going to be looked at as a weirdo.
Yeah.
Once you have kids, it's like opens up to like, oh, now I can and not seem so weird.
Well, I got to get me some kids, damn it.
Yeah, there you go. It's just like, Mike's going to have a post being like, does anyone want to loan their kids out tomorrow night? That's yeah.
If anybody would like to loan out their kids, Mike at toxicradio.net.
Yeah, kids, trick or kids.
Well, listen, you guys are not as old as I am, but you haven't lived until you've actually worn one of those old Collegeville Halloween costumes that let's say that you dressed up as Spider-Man. And you had the mask that was the plastic mask with the little cutout, and you put your tongue through the cutout, and it would cut your tongue.
And the string where, like, if you pulled it and it got stuck, you'd have a mark for like 2 weeks.
And the little plastic onesie you put on that wasn't actually Spider-Man's outfit. It was just like a yellow thing that just said Spider-Man across the front of it.
You looked nothing like Spider-Man.
Looked
nothing like Spider-Man whatsoever. You'd be better off wearing a T-shirt that just says "I am Spider-Man."
Right.
Maybe that's what I'll wear on Saturday. I'll get a shirt with a marker right. I am Spider-Man.
Those are the best. And you go to the store with your parents and you see like the boxes of them, and you have to look and see the face.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, they still It's funny because granted they've in a sense improved a little bit,
there you go.
but like at Walmart, you still have those. I want to say cheap type costumes, but again, like they still include a lot more like accessories than they did.
The funny part was they would have some of them you could figure out, like Spider-Man, Batman, the ones that you knew. But then they would have ones that were like like TV people, like Charlie's Angels, and they'd have like Farrah Fawcett.
Right.
But it would be just like this blonde woman,
a blonde wig or something. Right.
Like you'd see the face and you'd see a blonde woman, but you wouldn't know who it was supposed to be until you read the box, and you're like, oh. And then you obviously I wasn't going to go with Farrah Fawcett. My sister might though, but you would see like I don't know, they have some kind of generic costume, and it would just say whatever her name was on the show. I don't remember what it was.
Right. But. Now you got me thinking you need
Jaws.
to be fair.
I was Jaws once.
I was going to say you need to be Farrah Fawcett now for Halloween.
Should be.
Actually, some of the best Halloween costumes I've seen. Again, I'm obsessed with the show The Office. I love The Office, and Jim on the show. He's the smart ass guy. Like during the first couple seasons, like when they had the Halloween, his costumes were great. One year he had 3 big black dots and he had them taped in a row. And they're like, "What are you supposed to be?" He's like, "Oh, I'm 3-hole punch Jim," like a piece of paper. Then like one year he just wore a sticky note that says "Hi, my name," and he wrote Dave. And he's like, "What are you for?" He's like, "I'm Dave." That's what And then there was. I don't know. I think there was a couple more, but again, like they're like the greatest ones ever. So yeah.
So as far as traditions, like there's one that kind of pissed me off this year that we rectified. I don't know if you noticed before we went on air tonight, but I did find a copy of the Charlie Brown Halloween special.
Oh, I saw something about this.
It was the Great Pumpkin.
Right.
Because every year for literally 54 years, this has been on TV, or it's been on YouTube.
It's like CBS or NBC used to always
I played
play
it for my kids last year in school. I used to play it for my classes every year, for Halloween. So this year, apparently, Apple bought
it's
out
only
the
it's only
rights.
going to be exclusively on like Apple TV.
You can only see it on Apple TV.
Because I'm not 100% sure of the specifics, but like for example, I know when it comes to like copyright stuff, I mean especially Disney with Mickey Mouse was always a big thing. Where like after a certain amount of years,
right?
Unless somebody kind of renews it, because everybody always used to want to use that Mickey Mouse thing. Well, anyway, things like that where it's so old, it's like it just needs to be a point where look, it's so old. You can't get the rights like Apple. You know what I mean? Like something
Apple,
like that.
When Apple created Apple TV, they what these companies do now is they buy like bulk packages of like sometimes they'll buy from like Warner Brothers or whoever.
Right.
So I'm sure that was owned by somebody. I don't know what company at this point owned that.
Right.
But they must have bought that as part of a bulk package of television rights to programming.
Right.
And it was like part of the package.
Well, that's kind of like with the toys that you get at like McDonald's and Burger King and everything. I do know like restaurants, you'll never see two restaurants selling for like the same movie, like toy wise. Like usually when they sell off like toys for a certain movie, it's something to do with like they buy the rights for that one or something like that. But again, when you have something that's so old and you know what I mean, like it just shouldn't be a thing that you could just buy rights.
Well,
to,
like I said, I did find tonight, right before we went on air, before I left the house, someone it was a ministry of all things, some ministry from somewhere. Back in early September, this guy must have made a copy of this and put it on Facebook.
Did it right in time
of the entire show.
Huh.
So he posted it and said, basically, suck it, Apple.
Yeah, until it gets knocked off,
Right,
and
that's
it's
what
like
I
bad,
said. So I reposted it in the Paradelphia page. I reposted it on my personal page. I put it on
Suck it, Apple.
I put it on Twitter.
Right.
So,
Man.
you know.
And that's the thing. Once it's online, you'll find it anywhere,
Well,
But
you
it's
can't,
just,
though. It's tough. Like,
that's true.
They took it off of YouTube.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess when you have big companies like that, it is a little, I guess it is a little tough. It blows my mind, something that old and a tradition like that.
Right.
And now, unless you have Apple TV, you can't see. Like, give me a break.
You know what
I do see Mike
tradition-
playing it, though, on there, so
Yeah.
suck it, Apple.
Do you know what what tradition I miss when McDonald's had the pails?
Yeah.
Do you remember
Oh,
the pails
yeah.
with the lid?
Mhm.
Yo, I remember like every
The Happy
Halloween.
Meals.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Happy Meals. It came with like the pail and it had the lid. And I
Mhm.
remember many Halloweens, my mom or my dad would take us to get a Happy Meal. Usually it was like the day of Halloween and we'd get it. And that's what I would use to carry my candy. And I remember every year M. Frigger would break.
Because they knew if they got it to us beforehand, it would break in the closet. We'd have it piled on our closet. We'd have stuff piled on it.
Speaking of McDonald's, I'm going to date myself here, but do any of you remember the gift certificates?
I do.
Those? You remember them?
I
Yeah.
actually,
think so.
I was very, very young, but
Yeah.
I actually do. Yes.
That used to piss me off too. You
Right.
go to the door and they hand you a gift card,
They hand
gift
you,
certificate.
Yep, I do
Like, you
remember
kidding me
that.
here?
Mhm.
I mean, it was cool. You could turn them in for like fries and whatnot.
Right,
but
yeah,
still.
like a little, or the
I wanted a goddamn
Sundays.
candy bar.
They used to have Sundays
Yeah,
still. You
Sundays.
could get right. Well, let me ask. Do you remember you have the Hamburglar, and then you had all the little characters. So
Right.
the purple. There was one, and I vaguely remember because again I was so young, but there was one in particular, one character, and it used to terrify me. And I think his name was Mr. Mooney or something. He had a moon head.
Oh, it was
like a half moon.
It was the what the hell was that?
And he had a body, but
it wasn't one of the characters. What you're thinking of was they did a promotion.
Okay.
Where I believe what it was, if I remember correctly, McDonald's started opening up 24-hour stores.
Okay.
So they would have this promotion where one of the commercials was this moon. It was like a moon guy.
Right. He had like a half moon
Right.
head.
And it was basically
And
a
he
promotion.
wore sunglasses, right? Or
Yeah,
something, right?
it was like a promotion for their overnight service or something like that.
Oh,
and
okay.
they played a song. I can't remember what the hell the song was. It was like an older. Yeah, there he is.
Where, let me see. Yes!
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that. That's terrifying, though.
I know.
And he was supposed to be
Terrible to
like
look at.
who's the singer?
I don't know why
the
I
blind
thought-
singer.
Stevie Wonder?
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder, there you go.
Yeah.
I do, and
Or
I,
Ray
and that's-
Charles, one of them.
And that's the crazy thing about it is like, and I don't know why I came up with a name that his name was Mr. Mooney, but all I know
Mac Tonight. That was it.
Is that what it is?
Mac Tonight.
Let me tell you something. Again, I can barely remember. All I remember though was this half moon head and body, and it scared the hell. And I'm because I'm 34 now, so I would say that I was probably right. I'm 34. Yeah. So I'm saying that like I was probably like 3.
Right. And
I was scared to death of that thing.
And
like,
it was called Mac Tonight, and he sang the song that was to the song Mac the Knife.
oh, really?
Remember the old song Mac the Knife?
I do. Yeah.
So there was a song that went with that commercial that was sang to the tune of Mac the Knife.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah. Like, again, I don't remember anything of it. All I know is associated with McDonald's, and it scared the living hell out of me. But if you look at him, I mean, you're right. It is terrifying.
So we know Doug's Achilles heel now.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
I'll just next Halloween I'll be Mac the Knife.
You'll be Mac tonight. Yeah.
Or
But
Mac Tonight, whatever.
like I said, because I always.
Mac Tonight with a knife.
I always thought that he was a character. Nice. No, I always thought he was a character like like the Hamburglar, and it wasn't there like a purple
Grimace.
Like one, two. Grimace. That's it. Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Grimace.
So, but
he used to drink all the shakes.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Remember?
So, but yeah, now like, yeah, it's funny. Like I forgot all about those pails Jen I was talking about, like with the hamburger or the Happy Meals came inside. So
yeah, they were interesting. But yeah, the old the old costumes and the part. The other thing is the parties at school. We used to have.
Oh yeah.
We used to have. Now I teach. And I've taught for years now, so I kind of. Oh, this is Mac the Knife.
Oh, that's.
I don't like that.
Thanks, Mike. I'm having nightmares tonight now.
I might too. I don't like that.
Now, for anyone that's just listening and don't see our live video feed, if you go on Facebook, on Paradelphia on Facebook, you can see all this. He's playing the video. Great. I might not. I'm going to end up driving and just see that thing on the side of the road or something like that.
Doug will have nightmares.
Me crying and cussing Mike out at the same time.
So school.
Yes.
I've taught school for years now, and I've noticed that the kids will still dress up for Halloween.
Because you always have the parade and all that.
You used
too.
to. I don't know if the kids still do this in other schools, but the schools I've taught in, they don't go out and do a parade. What they'll do is they'll have a party sometimes in the classroom.
Right.
If anything, they might, like one school did like a parade inside the school where the kids kind of walk the hallways.
Right.
But man, we used to go out in the freaking street and walk around the school, and the parents were all out there with,
oh, yeah.
yelling and screaming and
right,
shit.
With my kids, with their school, the only time they did the parade, it was when they were in preschool and kindergarten.
Yeah.
After that, they didn't. I mean, I think once you get older, you can at the second half of the day, when they were in school, the second half of the day was, you could dress up in the costume. But see, even with the parties now, where they have all this stuff where people are allergic to so many things, you
God.
can't even.
Don't get me started on these.
Let's just say, you
Fucking
can't
peanut
even.
allergies and
yeah,
shit.
between that,
Good
it's almost
Lord.
like you can't even have freaking cupcakes. Remember birthdays?
We need to do a show on this because this has been a stone in my craw for years now.
Rick's going to come up with a whole nother concept show here.
These goddamn peanut out. Where did this come from?
I know.
We
Everybody's
no one had a peanut allergy.
Right. Now everybody's got a freaking. I think it's.
I heard a conspiracy theory once that it's because of this is bizarre and it's out there, but if you Google it, I'm pretty sure there's
It's Donald
facts
Trump.
behind it. It's that the whole peanut allergy thing and gluten allergy is derived from too much antibacterial soap and hand sanitizer.
Well,
Swear it's really, but at first hearing that you're like, no way, but then when you read into it, it kind of makes you go,
Why would young
wait
kids
a
have it?
minute.
Let's see. When it
I
comes,
guess because we don't let them eat dirt like we use we were
well,
able
no,
to.
I
used to.
agree. What, and it's crazy because
Stupid.
I had. Well, no, I've got
eating dirt.
But no, I mean that's the God's honest truth. Though I mean you see people getting so freaking sick nowadays because again, now granted, I mean I'm not saying you want to be touching everything, you know what I mean, but where everybody went outside and they were, freaking eating a sandwich, like Jenna said, where you have dirt on your hands, you eat a sandwich or lunch. It's like riding bike, swallowing a bug or something. Your immune system, you got to let it build that up. Using so much of that stuff, you're not giving your body a chance to, you freaking...
Did you do that often, Doug? Just swallow bugs?
Yeah, why not? It's just
Mama, I had dinner. I ate some bugs.
No, it's right when we used to ride four-wheelers and stuff out there. That's where you...
Doug would ride with his mouth open.
Yeah, be like, yeah, so...
No, my parents have always talked about when they were kids and they ride their bike down the street, they'd always ride behind they'd always end up riding behind the bug sprayer that spray for mosquitoes and stuff.
Jeez, that's
yes, I mean,
my God, that's like a suicide. I mean,
they're okay.
Yeah,
I mean, my
gotcha.
parents also worked at a nuclear plant, so
no, that's true. Yeah,
so it might be a different issue there.
I was going to
but-
say that's a whole nother immunity in itself.
So you're a miracle baby.
Yeah,
Me and my
right.
sister both, apparently.
I was going to say
Maybe that's what's wrong with me.
Maybe we turn the lights out, she'll glow or something. It's like, I
wish.
didn't know I could do that.
I wish.
Yeah.
So speaking of dangers, right? How many parents? How many of your parents checked candy? Remember doing that?
Oh,
my parents did.
I remember.
I don't think it
Linda
was
Sue.
hardcore. No, I don't
No,
think
I remember several times my mom picking the piece. That's okay, but then she would always keep some and say, "Oh, that looks open." But they'd be her favorite,
No one
Hershey bar.
Yeah, but see, that's what thing. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. No one mom she did that just because it's nope, this is a bad looking one. But see, with in my case, I mean, it was young. I can remember just kind of doing a quick overall, but it was mainly if you see anything looks like it's open or anything, but it was never
This all started back in
hardcore.
the early '80s. You had an actual incident that took place. A father, I forget the whole story. We could do a show on this at some point, but it was a freaking psychotic dude. This father, for insurance money, poisoned his own son with
Jesus
Halloween candy.
Christ.
And so But what he said was that it came from another
came
house.
from a candy thing.
They
right.
eventually found out it was him, and it was a big trial, and they eventually put him on death row for it. But the rumor that it came from
should have poisoned him.
Right, from trick or treating kind of got around, and it became a thing. Like people started to think, oh shit, people are going to start putting pins in candy and all kinds of shit.
So because of that one isolated incident,
right?
I mean, I'm sure maybe
and it took off.
Maybe I'm sure there's been some incidences here and there, not so big, but like just because of that one isolated incident.
I like how the every year it goes around on Facebook where it says, "Parents, be warned that there's adults giving children edibles. Check." I'm like, ain't nobody's giving
out their edibles like that. That's what I'm
Right. Yeah, like
no one's giving out edibles for for Halloween.
That's the thing. Like people are gonna.
And then people comment and they're like, no one's doing that.
No one's doing
Well,
that.
I'll tell you another thing too.
And if they are, I'm going trick or treating this year.
Yeah, right.
I'll show up at their house.
Yeah, after you get drug tested, you're like, it was my Halloween candy, I swear. But no, one of the other things too is you compared nowadays to back in the days. Again, you would go trick or treating when you hit that certain age. You would go trick or treat with your friends. Like your parents were like, all right, go out and do this and trick or treat, be back, blah blah blah, a certain amount of time. Back then it's like they send you off, and they'd be like, when they knew you would be home.
Right.
Well, nowadays, again, there's been a lot of incidents of crazy psycho people with kidnapping and everything. But nowadays,
has there?
That's true. But see, you wouldn't.
Because that's the other thing.
But see,
you hear this all the time. But has there really?
But see, and that's the crazy thing is like, even I know, like with me, like again, talking about us going to like my aunt, like. A couple of us, when we hit a certain age, like they would just let us all kind of like, wander. I mean, we stayed in the neighborhood, obviously, but it's kind of like, go do your thing while they were with the younger kids, and that was it. But see, me, even with my kids, I would never let them wander off or anything. So, but it's a big difference.
We walked in pitch black.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
9:30 at night, we were wandering
in
around
the woods. It's like compared to back those days. But again, not just Halloween. Back in those days, you'd go out on, you'd be 11, 12 years old. It's like, I'm going on a bike ride. You're riding around town. Right. The lights on, or hearing, your mom or dad calling or whatever. Yeah.
That's what my mom always said. She told me and my sister, and even like when they were kids, they're like, you always got home when the streetlights came on.
What's with that? Like, it's always the streetlights when you grew up. Because the only time me growing up, the only time I was ever like old enough where I could go on bike rides and streetlight situation is we lived in a town in Salem County, Quinton, and we lived in this it was a town, and I remember I was like 3rd, 4th grade, but I used to go out, ride my bike. It was like a half mile to maybe mile radius that we did, and it was always like when it starts to get dark and you see lights come on, or it was houses were so close together when our one neighbor, last name the Rays, when you heard their mom yelling to the top of their lungs, Randy, and it would echo. You knew that because they were our neighbors. But again, like I remember that was ever a situation I was like close enough around that I could do that.
I think the streetlight thing was because the town put them on, set them to go off at dusk, whatever dusk was, whenever
solar,
that was.
right before like the solar panel type thing.
So in the summertime they would go on at 8:30, 8:45 at night. In the wintertime it would be like 5 o'clock or 4:30 or something.
Yeah, that's
so the towns would change them. So that was kind of the demarcation point where you go from daylight to dark.
It's like the town alarm clock.
So when the lights come on, you come home because that's when it's getting dark.
Right. That's the thing. You always heard that. Like at one point or another, especially if you lived in a town, you always had at least one point like a streetlight rule, Yeah. And so other than that, we always lived in places where it was just kind of like out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So I just, but like I said, times have, changed like that. Instead of just trick-or-treating, going out with your friends, being back, now it's just like... You got a 2-hour limit because of towns, and yeah. So
what can I say? It's a whole different world these days. It's a shame. It really is a shame.
Yeah.
I feel bad for kids. I really do.
Right,
because they, this year especially because of COVID and everything.
But they don't really know any better either.
But even before COVID, like you have this situation where these kids just have no leeway. They have no freedom to just go be kids.
And now let me ask you this. Of course, it goes away from our topic of paranormal and stuff, but do you think because of that, in your opinion, do you think that causes maybe some kids to be rebellious and be more in trouble, so to speak, when they get older because they have that isolated
definitely.
thing?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like
Definitely. It's because I think it's more because like that they don't get a chance to experience that stuff
Right.
when they're a kid and they don't get in as much trouble, so they're figuring, like probably like also
let me up the ante every time,
maybe
you know?
not, yeah, but also probably like movies and TVs and everything, and see all this stuff like, oh, like that kid's being a kid, like I never did that as a kid, and then they see everybody else doing everything, or maybe they have like a friend who
they see getting away with it, kind of thing,
and they're like,
know?
oh shit, I can do this too,
Right.
and then next thing they know they're in jail or something. So it's probably just more.
What? Huh?
What was that?
That was Jenna.
Why?
I thought we had a ghost in
I
studio.
was gonna say, what
No.
was that? But yeah,
So
I got
I
you.
think it's.
Right.
So I think that's. I mean, it's definitely plays into it. I would say it's the main reason.
Right, I
but
got you.
it's definitely a variable.
Right,
in
yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Because of that, you're not having that leeway. Again, as you get older and get that more freedom, where you, like you said, didn't have a chance to make those little mistakes.
Right.
You get it. It just kind of makes you more rebellious and see what you can get away with. So,
Well,
again,
we'll see how it plays out for the future. But for right now, it is what it is, I guess. All right, so we're going to start wrapping the show up here. So this has been a fun evening. Just waxing poetic about Halloween. No real agenda here, but I figured it would be kind of fun to just go down memory lane and just throw some topics out there and get some opinions.
Whether you're a baby, adult, or teen, it's okay to be out on Halloween. I just made it up.
He tries so hard.
That's me freestyling.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah,
See that?
right.
Mike, I want a freestyle show. I go on the mic for 2 hours and do things like that.
Doug's over here on 8 Mile. All right, so it's been fun evening.
Yeah.
So
And be safe, of course, out there every day.
yeah, everybody out there listening, have fun Halloween. Be safe.
The white van.
We are going to be dark next week, but the following week, which I believe is the 12th of November,
Jesus.
we will be back with a brand new show. Yeah, November
Are
already.
they going to have a COVID cure by then?
I maybe
Okay.
we'll see.
They will know who the next president's going to be.
Well,
by then.
we may know by then.
Well, that's true.
The way things are going, we may not know until freaking January.
Yeah. Let's just elect a king. And they call him Caesar and go,
All right, so it's been fun. So, Catrena, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me back.
Dougie, thank you.
All righty.
And Jenna B, wherever you're at, floating out there in the interwebs. Steven, I see you
Salem
back there.
County represent.
Getting chewed on by the dog. All right, so that has been the show for the evening. So, again, thank you guys for listening and watching, and have a happy and safe Halloween, and we will catch you on the flip side in a couple weeks.
All righty.
So we are Paradelphia, and we are
Good
now
night.
out of here.